Hello and welcome everyone. Today's lectures we are going to discuss the new point stoichiometric point defect in solids. In these points we have see the structures of crystal defects. There are the various types of defects which is arise in the crystals, like the crystals. It is a regular repetitive three-dimensional arrangement of atoms or ions in solids. But you know that a perfect crystal, it may be defined as in which all atoms are their correct lattice position in the crystal structure. All these crystalline materials which are not perfect because the actual crystalline structures which can form the meeting of these various specification. Perfect crystal is very useful concept to explain various types of the physical properties like the density, specific heat of vaporization, elasticity. So such types of physical property can explain the perfect crystals. So an ideally perfect crystal is defined as the crystal in which has the same unit cell and it contains same lattice point throughout the crystals, which is called as perfect crystals. But perfect crystals can be obtained hypothetically only at the absolute 0 Kelvin. Means at absolute 0, crystals tend to have perfect order arrangement of the atoms or the ions. The crystalline solids have a definite, definite geometrical forms as regular repetitions arrangement of the atoms or the ions. As the temperature of that crystals is greater than 0 Kelvin, then what happens? The crystal departure and arrangement of that crystals, it will be departure and it will be increase the temperature. Some of the lattice, some site remain which are unoccupied, and this is a constituent defect which is observed in the crystal lattice. The defect which can describe like the deviation of present in ideally perfect crystal. From these periodic arrangements of these constituent particles in the crystals, which is observed various types of deviation. Like we have see the define the defects or imperfection in the crystals. So defects of solid means it is a deviation from a completely ordered arrangement in the crystal is known as defect. Or any deviation from periodicity in the solids is called as imperfection. Means any solid crystals it having some of these defects like deviations are not completely ordered one by one of these layers arrangement in the crystal, which is called as the defects. So any types of defects which is observed in the crystals It may be due to the deviation from orderly array of particles, disorder in geometric space lattice, and third one is a disruption in three-dimensional crystal lattice. So these 3 points which are important for the defect of crystals which is observed. So imperfection or the various types of defects in solids are arise due to the thermal vibrations, radiation damage, or plastic deformation. So such types of points which include the imperfection of the crystals. The imperfection also occurs during the growth of crystals, like crystallization of crystals, as the missing of atoms are there, extra atoms which is there, atoms out of place, irregularities in the space, rows of atoms, presence of impurities. So such points also which will affect the defect or the imperfection of the crystals during the growth of crystal. The crystal defects which also perform the physical as well as the chemical properties of a solid. For example, a beautiful color of the many geostones which are present due to impurity atoms in the crystal structures. Ionic solids also to conduct the electricity by the mechanisms. Another examples like the presence of vacant ion site in the lattice, and therefore defect shows marked influence on the structure to properties which are greatest technical importance, like the electrical and thermal conductors, mechanical strength, ductility of the crystal growth. So such points which are also affect on the defect of the crystal. Defect may scattered the conduction electrons in metals, which increase its electrical resistance by several percent in many pure metals as compared to impure metals. The behavior of solid under stress is largely determined by the nature and concentration of defects. There are various ways to study the crystal defect. Can be stoichiometric crystals and non-stoichiometric crystals. They may be studied by considering the site or dimensions. They occur and classified accordingly as different types of defects found in crystals. We can explain as like the types of defects. First types is a point defects, or another name is a zero dimensional defects. These defects can include the impurities, and these impurities are of two types, like substitutional impurities, and next one is a interstitial impurities. Next types of defects which is present in crystals like interstitial defects So this interstitial point defects, and third one is a vacancies. So these impurities, interstitial and vacancies, so these three types of points defects which is present the crystals. Next types of defect which is a line defect. So line defects are the edge of dissolution, screw dissolution and mixed dissolution. So these three types of defects which is present in a line defects. And next defect is a surface defect. Another name is a two-dimensional defect. So these defects which is present the line edge boundary defects, grain boundary defect, and third type is a stacking boundary defects. Next defects like volume defects. The volume defects which is another name is a three-dimensional defects. Next type is a voids or the clusters is present in these types of defect. So total four types of defects which is present in crystals. First defect is point defect, next line defects, third one surface defects, and fourth one volume defect. So these four defects are there. Out of these four, in these chapters we have studied only the point defects and line defects mainly observed in crystal, and we have discussed only the point defects are here. So what is mean by point defects? Point defects which is present the simple structural crystals, it includes single atom or lattice site is called as point defect. Point defect are if the deviation from regularity or periodicity occurs due to missing atoms, displaced atoms, and is confined to a very small region of only about a few lattice constant, it is called as point defect. So this is the definition of point defect. Point defect which is produced in the small volume of the crystal having several atoms, but this defect does not affect the perfection of the crystals. Another points which are very important, like these defects are present these defects which is observed due to the impurity, intervacancies. So these 3 points which can be included in these point defects. Next, they will be result imperfect packing during crystallization which is observed. Also, these defects are arise by thermal vibration due to increasing the temperature. Also, they may be probable of by increasing the temperature that times jumping out of atoms from their positions can take place. Okay, so such a types of defects we have seen. Thank you.